Welcome to A Sister Story. Today we're delighted to welcome you, Sister Judith Friedel, formerly known as our Sister Jude Ellen. How did you get that name, Judy?
Well, it was Sister Jude Ellen,
Yeah,
Carol G. McDonald, who, remember in those days they were called sponsors.
right.
Yeah.
Our dear sponsors. Uh-huh.
Judith, I never really loved that name so much, Judy, but so I love Jude, and I don't know, I just like the sound of it. And I did, before profession in that, I thought I tried to choose a name that would go well with mother, like Mother Jude Ellen,
Were you were were you aspiring to be the Mother General?
Well, it just was a thought that that's what I used to tell people.
Very good. I've not heard that for a reason. So I have a couple of suggestions that can put you on the road to that, even though we don't call our prioress mother anymore.
Right.
But you need a few steps you need to do before that. So anyway, thanks, Judy. All right, now we're talking and conversing with Judy Friedel from Westlake, Ohio, and that is right near Cleveland, correct? And that's your home state, your home area. So can you tell us a bit about your beginnings and your family life? I'm assuming it was a very happy time because you're a very happy person.
It was a happy time. I grew up on the east side of Cleveland. My mom and dad, there were three. I have two older sisters, and I went to St. Timothy. We belonged to St. Timothy Parish in Garfield Heights. I think the thing I treasure most is my mom had two sisters also that were in the parish who had larger families than us. And she also had first cousins, some that she actually lived with for a while, who had large families. So we were like an extended family. I loved it when it was happening, but as I look back at it, I just delight in how wonderful that was. St. Timothy was a rather large parish, and in school, but it's like we had cousins in every grade,
Mm-hmm.
So, and we got together often. We were all in the same neighborhood,
Yeah.
So we're very close. And it just was so much fun growing up. It's like you had multiple brothers and sisters,
Good,
Yeah.
good. So what did your dad do? Or your mother?
My dad worked for J&L Steel. He was a payroll clerk. My mom was mostly a stay-at-home mom. She did meet my father at J&L. She was working there. But she was home most of the time, growing up,
Mm-hmm.
which was a wonderful thing. We used to, have to go home for lunch and everything. And
Yeah, that era is certainly not part of our world today, mostly.
No.
So you went to St. Timothy. Now, did you have sisters there? I mean, women religious?
I had Ursuline sisters there.
Okay.
And usually when I'm sharing my vocation story, I always say they were very good teachers, but I didn't get to know them as persons, it just was a different time and everything. So then I went to Holman Dominican and met the Adrian Dominicans. And They were marvelous teachers too. I had wonderful teachers, but I also got to know them as people, as persons. And I always say what was most attractive to me was their joyful spirit.
Right, right.
And I later learned, they were going through some hard times, behind the scenes. But for them to come and be so happy to be with us.
How are you so perceptive about them having trouble behind the scenes?
I wasn't at the time so much, but later on.
When you look back.
The curtain was full. It was like, but so I'm just so grateful,
Was there someone in particular that inspired you or you drew extra close to?
Well, when I was in grade school, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I knew that. I loved learning, but then it wasn't until senior year of high school, even the latter part, that the thought of entering the community came to me. Like I say, Carol Jean was there to guide me along the way. There were also 4 other students from Hoban that entered that same year. So my parents were most, supportive. A little surprised, I think, but supportive. And although my sister Bobby, she said to me when she found out, she said, well, what's the thing, just...
What's what?
What's the thing, these people going off? Because one of the friends was like one of my best friends in high school. So she thought I was just going along with it. But I do remember saying to her at the time, that would be very foolish because I have no idea that they're going to stay or how long or, I'm not going for them, And as it turned out, I'm the only one. They left at different points.
Right, right.
So, the grace of God, there were times where I thought, this might be it. They'll be sending me home.
Right, right. And I think that whole sense, as we get older, when people say, what is it that, why did you want to be a nun? Whether or not I could articulate it at the time, but there's a call. And it's very personal, I guess, between myself and my God that you respond. How can you explain that? It's a call. And so you heard it, and you are with us. Yeah. So then you entered in what year?
1963.
63. Okay.
September, 63.
What was going on in the world at that time? In our country, yeah.
I left the world. So I didn't know what was going on.
That's right. No newspapers, no radio. You couldn't. Yeah.
Anyway, well, we had a Catholic president and during those early years.
Yeah.
The man on the moon and, great things were happening. But I wasn't able to follow the news the way I do now, Anyway.
So then you went through a few years of formation.
Yes.
Okay.
And then this was the only appointment I ever received in the community, after making first vows. I was sent to California.
Wow.
Which at that time I thought was the other side of the world, which in a way it was. I had some allergy problems, that followed me there. And I think somebody had said to me, well, that was the reason we thought, the environment would be good and stuff. But so I was 5 years in Hayward, California.
Oh.
I started out teaching first grade for 2 years, which was fun, But and then I moved up to fourth, and then I went to seventh and eighth junior high, which was quite a jump. But actually, I taught junior high level most of my teaching years.
Okay.
I loved them, and I had teachers say to me, "Oh, junior high, I'm scared. I'm afraid of them." I said, "You're afraid of a 12 or 13-year-old?" I found them very, exciting and just
Wonderful.
yeah.
Did you teach certain subjects with the higher up, the 7th and 8th graders?
Yeah, I would teach religion, and I taught math and science initially. So I went from after the 5 years in Hayward, we were given the option. You could put 3 choices down for where you might like to move.
Really?
Yeah, you don't remember that?
No.
So I put down 3 choices, and I did opt at that time to move a little closer to home. So anyway, I got sent to a Guardian Angels in Clawson, Michigan.
Okay.
And I was there for 5 years. And it's during that time that all the changes, were happening in the community.
How were those changes for you? Is there one in particular that maybe was challenging?
Well, I feel I was ready for it.
Okay.
I remember, and we were free to move into, I went to Hayward, California in full habit.
Right.
And then it was like the shortened habit. By the time I went to Clawson, we could wear regular clothes. And I remember my dad's sister, my Aunt Mary, she was very concerned about it. She said, "Well, how are they going to know that you're a sister?" I said, "Well, Aunt Mary, I'm going to tell them. I am just going to tell them." But I had no problem with that because, as history had it, the women, first religious women, they wore the clothing of the day,
Right.
It's only when fashion changed. And I found it troublesome, those first year in habit, to always feel like you're a little spectacle of some sort, people looking at you. And a funny occurrence was when I visit home, I took my little nephew, who must have been 4 or 5. We were shopping in a department store, and there was a sister all clothed in her attire. And he said, "Look, Aunt Judy, there's a church lady."
Okay.
He didn't even know he was with a church lady.
Oh.
There's a church lady. So there is something about the identity for it, but I was ready for the moves. I just think connection is so important, and whatever can enable you to connect more with people where they see you at their own level, I don't, and I just was most comfortable with that.
And they can identify. I always felt they can identify with us more than with the habit, whatever that meant to them. Yeah.
And
So
another aspect of the call, when I said I wanted to be a teacher, I was thinking I wanted to be a physical education teacher. That was my initial aspiration. And because I loved sports, I played sports such as they were, in those days for girls. But I always say, God knows the gifts that he gave you, and he will find a way to have you put them to use. So starting in California, and then in Clawson, and then I went to Florida. I coached girls sports.
Where were you in Florida? Remind me.
I was in Melbourne, Florida for 3 years.
With Our Lady of Lourdes.
Our Lady of Lourdes.
Did you feel my presence there? You came right after me, I think.
Oh, I did?
Yes,
Yes, it must have been that just
Yeah.
attracted me there in the first place, and then kept me there
Father,
for 5 years. Well,
who was
3
the
years.
pastor? Who was the pastor?
It was Father, oh gosh,
John
Caulfield.
John Caulfield.
Did you have
Yeah.
John Caulfield?
Yeah, yeah,
I love that man. He was very open and
yeah,
loved the nuns. Loved the
yeah.
nuns. Couldn't do enough.
He was ahead of his
Jonetta
time.
was principal there when I first went. Jonetta, yeah,
Oh,
it
right.
was a great group of nuns. And but I coached sports like basketball, volleyball, softball, and
Wonderful.
you know, you got to meet kids that in a different, sense.
Right.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed that.
Good.
I look back at it now and I say, how did I have all the time and energy to keep up with that? Because, you teach and then you go to either practice or go to games. And in Florida, you had to travel to get to the games and stuff. So you got home late at night. But
You were younger.
I believe I was a little bit younger.
So you were there 4 or 5 years?
I was there 3 years in Melbourne, 2 years in Petersburg.
Oh,
And then I was
okay.
ready for something different. It seems like I went 5-year stints. I didn't plan
Okay.
to play. It just
Mhm.
seemed after the number of years, I was looking for something else or something different. So from there, I moved on to Arizona.
You certainly have been to many states.
I know, I've been around. So I taught at Keno Learning Center out in
Okay.
Tucson the
Mhm.
first year, and decided 1 year was enough. I mean, it was open ed, and I do believe in a lot of open ed concepts. We did some of that in the schools I worked in, but it was a little too open for my, I think young children need some structure, more structure than I think was offered them. But anyway, then I was offered a position in youth ministry. So I stayed on there, and that was my first, experience with youth ministry. I actually have to say, I missed the teaching. I was so used to the structure. I remember sitting behind my desk saying, well, what do I do? There were no people around. But anyway, so I enjoyed that. And then I went back into education and moved to Chicago. So I was out there. I was in Tucson for 5 years. Chicago, I taught at Marillac High School. I taught theology for 5 years. And, one of the things was, as you look back at things, when I have time, like on retreat or that, I look back at the whole, the whole picture, and I think God was just leading me on a path. I started out with teaching and math and science, but my heart was drawn to, teaching religion. And so that's what, and from there it was, well, I even when I was teaching, I loved that part of it, religion
Okay.
and the spiritual part of it. So after teaching in high school, then actually I was going back for the next year, but then my dad had beginning dementia.
Oh,
And so it brought me back to Cleveland in 1990. And I helped my two sisters take care of my dad. Now, I was primary caregiver. The two of us lived with my sister Bobby for the first year or so. Then, and I did different things during that time because we had to try to keep him active. We would take him to a senior daycare. I did some subbing in local boys' high school, and it was good. So after that, after Dad passed away, I know my sister Peggy said to me, well, are you going to be moving on? Because they're used to me moving on. I said, well, I don't know what I'm doing right now. But and then I had a pastor from one of the churches that we used to go for liturgy, and he invited me to be youth minister. It was still on the west side and that.
Mm-hmm.
So I had another experience with youth ministry, which was good. After that, this was one of the, it was an unexpected, I always say it was a ministry that came out of heaven, because I moved on from there. There was some unfortunate, it was an unfortunate situation. It wasn't good, but so I moved on, and not by my own will, but you know, I needed to move on. So I ended up, I became spiritual activities director at St. Christopher Parish, which was my sister's parish. This was like being a campus minister for little kids. It was just an absolute joy, because I would have a spiritual theme for the year, and I'd go into classes and have a couple classes on it. And then I set up a whole retreat program for the little kids. Every class had a retreat.
What was the age level of these kids?
These were kindergarten through 8th.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
You
awesome.
know, the blessing of it was, you know, I invited moms to just assist me. They would be like small group leaders and stuff, and they loved it. And you know, I just loved it. I love planning it. I love doing it, and the children really delighted in it.
What's your greatest inspiration, or the ministry? It sounds like you were awesome in all your ministries, but is there perhaps one in particular that really was growth-filled and transformative for you?
I think it was more the movement that I sensed, you know, where it became clearer to me where I wanted to invest, where my greatest talents or gifts were. And so after I served as campus minister there for the little kids, I made a decision to go back to school, and I took a year of study at Aquinas.
Oh.
It was a certificate program in spiritual direction. After I got over the shock of being back in a classroom, saying, you know, those first day going to classes, I thought, what am I doing here? But it was a blessed year, very busy and, you know, very full. But that's where my heart really is and still is. I love it. You know,
are you doing spiritual
direction and doing programs, spiritual programs? And actually, I spent 11 years after becoming, you know, going through the program, 11 years as a pastoral minister in a parish, which I loved. It was a beautiful community, St. Brendan's. And I had opportunities to be involved in a lot of different aspects of ministry that I hadn't had the experience of before. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, I ran the Social Justice Commission, and I did healing, you know, visiting the sick, and all of that was a blessing. And but after 11 years, I decided to so-called, you know, retire. Uh-huh. You know how they say nuns never retire. I told the people there, I'm just refiring, you know, for the next. So I wanted to be free to do more spiritual direction and spiritual programs. Good. Which I've done. It's sort of been on a stall, you know, during this pandemic, you know, but I found ways to connect with people, you know, during Lent of last year, I sent, well, some of our nuns and some friends, I did what I call Lectio Leanings, and that was to take the scripture of the day and ponder it and share some reflections. I would share a prayer. Usually I found a song and some sort of image to capture what I felt was nourishment from that word. So I did that. I'll probably do that again this Lent, although I might try to make it available to more people.
Good.
And then lately, I've done on Facebook just these scripture snippets. It's just a line from scripture every day, the scripture of the day. A very short prayer, usually 1 or 2 sentences, and I find some music that fits in with it. And I just believe so fully that the Word of God is so nourishing. I've dealt in working with people, I've had people say, well, I pray and I talk to God, but God never talks to me, and that's one of the most powerful ways. But I think you have to teach people how to pray with the Word. They read it like it's a history book or something, and it doesn't have anything to do with me.
Well, you certainly would be or are a treasure in a parish with what you are able to give and what you're willing to give of your talents. I know we could go on, but I just want to end with a few little things. What might be something about you? Now, for many of us, we didn't know that much about you. I mean, our paths haven't crossed. Is there something about you that if we knew, we'd be very surprised? Besides you can do all those sports?
Well, I still do sports. I'm
Good.
bowling.
Good.
If you want to call it bowling.
Yeah. So what might we be surprised about?
Surprised. Well, I'm trying to think what would be surprising.
That's okay. Yeah. Do you have a sense where the Spirit might be leading you at this time? You've been very attentive to the Spirit of our loving God.
Well, I think it's to continue to offer, spiritual nourishment to people in whatever way I can. Sometimes it's one-on-one. What I'm doing, it's starting tomorrow even. We're looking, I have a group for a book study on Janet Schaefler's book on Let This Be the Time. So I'm very excited about that.
And tell us what that book is about. I mean, just
it's about aging gracefully.
Yeah, aging gracefully. That's good.
Well, I'm still trying to think of the surprise.
Oh, that's all right. When I come back to you and ask you for the next part of your story, you can tell us. Do you have any thoughts on our new unfolding chapter and what we're about to be about? You're part of that. That's something new and exciting.
It is. It is. And I really appreciated the meeting last evening too. And to me, it's so Dominican.
Good.
I know, what do we call it? Dominican...
Disputatio.
Huh?
Disputatio.
Or whatever. We find a way around things.
Yeah.
There's always a way.
Exactly.
So I'm very, very happy because I so appreciate the women who have served for so long now. And to put this off indefinitely,
Yeah.
When there's a way you can do this, because I think as far as all of us meeting together, it's not going to happen till probably the following year.
In person, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm excited. I'm especially excited when we can do that, to meet more people, that our paths haven't crossed, because there's so much we can learn from each other. And
Right, and not to butt in, but I am. That's one of the reasons for these stories. I mean, these are just a treasure, and we've been able to get our women from across the country. So that's one of the wonderful things about the pandemic. We can't do it in person, but there are other ways that we can continue to share this. And our women have been most generous. There's a few that I keep after knocking at their door. But anyway, we're going to have to stop. And I hope you will continue as we look at this new chapter, that you will be open to the spirit of call, and hold you in prayer. So thank you.
Well, I thought of one surprising thing.
What?
I used to be shy.
You're
I
not
was
now.
shy as a little girl, but I think it was junior high. I broke that.
I know. I think a lot of
No
us
longer
started.
shy.
I think a lot of us were shy, but our ministries have brought more of us out. So anyway, thank you. I know this was rather quick for 30 minutes for your lifetime, but I want to thank you, Judy Friedel and Jude Ellen. And the reason we want to make sure we give your religious name, many of our people look at the stories on YouTube, and they want to know who Sister used to be because they don't know you by your baptismal name. So that's why we like to get both of them in there. So thank you for your faithfulness.
And I want to also thank you for your ministry of doing this.
I know, isn't it great?
Jody before you.
Yes,
it's a wonderful thing. And that's going to be one of my Lenten things this Lent, is to watch a couple of the stories.
Good.
We're here to inspire others.
Good.
And,
so thank you. And I know you are a wonderful caregiver for your dear sister, Bobby, and we all are continuing to pray for her. And so you're a delight, you're funny, and you're very prayerful and generous. So God be with you, and I pray with you as you move ahead in your life, in our life.
Bless you. Yeah.
Thank you.
In your day. God bless everyone.
Thank you.